Hello. Today I'm going to reflect on the story of Jesus turning water into wine at the wedding in Cana, a well-known story in the Bible from John's Gospel. Let's listen to the text. On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine, and did not know where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. That's a well-known story, isn't it? And in popular culture, we know the phrase turning water into wine. I want to talk about how we understand that story, and I'm going to talk about 2 ways that I think it's misunderstood. The first one in our popular culture is, I think in popular culture this story is really source of comedy for most people. If you do a search on Google for turning water into wine and jokes, you'll see what I mean. So a typical one of these would be, and I did the search, would be a little poster. And it's like an advert from a woman who's saying, "Does anyone know what page in the Bible that tells me how to turn water into wine? It's for a party this Friday." Another little cartoon I saw was of imagining back in the 1st century the Jewish Publicans Union being upset by what's going on, and there's this angry guy with a beard and a big placard saying to Jesus, "Look, I'm warning you, this has got to stop, or else." And another one is a bit more contemporary situation where there's lots of versions of this joke. So a Lutheran minister, or it could be any minister from any denomination, he's driving on the highway and he's been drinking, gets pulled over by the police, and the police stop the car and they look in the window and they see an empty bottle of wine on the floor of the car, and the Lutheran minister says, "Oh my, he did it again." So harmless jokes, but it suggests to me that this story is kind of dismissed in our popular culture as a kind of magic trick by Jesus. I don't think Jesus was into magic tricks. And actually, of course, the miraculous aspect of Jesus' ministry is quite downplayed in the Gospels compared to a lot of other narratives about saintly and heroic people of his time. So let's move on from that one. It's not a magic trick. Another way this has been, I think, misunderstood, and you might have heard of this one, this idea about kind of what's going on in the New Testament is this competition between the Christian propaganda, the Christian mythos, and the myths and religions of the Greek and Roman world. So for a lot of people, they see this suspiciously like the Greek stories around the god Dionysus, the god of wine. Apparently this god was quite popular in the eastern region of the Roman Empire where Jesus was. And the narrative is that as the Christian gospel, they expanded out of Jewish Palestine into the Greek and Roman world. They kind of adopted stories from that culture as a way of sort of giving propaganda for the Christian message. and kind of diluting the Christian message as they did, compromising it a little bit. That idea was quite popular when I was at university like 30 years ago. And it's been largely debunked in the theological world for two reasons. One, this story of Jesus turning water into wine is very unlike any other story associated with Dionysus. And in fact, there's no actual story of Dionysus turning directly himself water into wine, although there are stories, similar ones, like a spring of water becoming a source of wine, but nothing quite like this. And secondly, it is not necessary to understand the world of Jesus through the lens of the Greek mythology. After all, in the Old Testament, there's lots of imagery and symbolism about wine and vines, and it's quite possible very more than possible to understand the symbolic meaning of this story, the sign of this story, without recourse to Greek and Roman mythology. The Old Testament says Israel is a vine. A number of occasions, wine is a symbol of God's abundance, and God's goodness, and God's blessing. And wine is used throughout the New Testament as a symbol, as an image. I mean, look at the Last Supper, right? When Jesus takes a glass of wine and says, in an occasion of a Jewish occasion, the Passover meal, takes the cup of wine and compares it to his blood, which will be shed for humanity. So I don't think we need to go digging around into Greek and Roman mythology to understand what's going on in this story. What is going on? Well, it's John's Gospel, so it's deeply symbolic and all different layers of meaning throughout the story. My hour, Jesus references there, of course, that's to do with the cross. And that, at the end it says the disciples understood that this was a sign, something going on here bigger than just a matter of turning something amazing, miracle, a magic trick, turning water into wine. That's not the point. It's what this story points to, and it points to Jesus. It points to what Jesus is about and what he's going to do. It's at the start of John's Gospel, kind of an introduction to Jesus. And Jesus is this new wine himself. It says a lot of really positive, affirming things about the Christian message. It says that God is embedded in the world. God meets the world where it is. And it's wonderful that John's Gospel starts with Jesus attending a wedding, a village wedding. That's great. That's where God is. God is present in the joy of our community celebrations. It's exactly where God is present, as God is present in every aspect of our lives. But God enjoys the community celebrations, like a simple thing like a village wedding. But there's more to it than that, of course. It's also saying God does something more than just be present. God is also a God of transformation. And I think that's the key element in this sign. The water becomes wine. And so, marvelous metaphor of how God takes the ordinary stuff of life. Although water is, I think, in many ways exceptional, but we take it for granted. But God takes that ordinary stuff of life and can transform it into something that brings further blessing and joy, like wine in this example. And that's what God does. That's the nature of God. That's what Jesus was about. Jesus was about meeting people where they were and adding an extra layer of significance and meaning and joy and blessing to their lives. And after all, Christianity is about making the world better, saving us, forgiving us, healing us, leading forward towards God's kingdom. So this is all about that. The wine in the Old Testament is a symbol of God's kingdom. The wine, the fruit of the vine, the wine of the kingdom. God's kingdom on earth, as we pray. Time of goodness and joy, of celebration, of love, of unity, of reconciliation. That's what we long for, and that's what we proclaim in our Christian faith. A great story, and one to live out in our daily living.